Maybe you have felt it before, that heavy, dense energy that suddenly fills the room the moment you walk in. That look that doesn't just see you, but pierces through you with an intensity you cannot explain. It is not jealousy, not mere discomfort. It is something deeper, darker, more primal. Carl Jung, with his sharp insight into the human psyche, understood this well. This is not envy. This is pure hatred. But not ordinary hatred, not the kind that arises from an open conflict. It is a silent hatred, masked by politeness, hidden behind smiles and friendly gestures. A hatred that emerges in the shadows of the psyche of those who have never faced their own inner emptiness. Jung said that what we deny within ourselves, we project onto others. And this phenomenon, projection, is the key to understanding why there are people who simply hate you, even though you have never done them any harm. It is not because you are arrogant or because you are doing something wrong. It is because your very existence, your light, your authenticity, confronts them with everything they have suppressed within themselves. Unconsciously, you embody everything they would never dare to be. They cannot bear to see you free, happy, and growing, because that exposes their own inner imprisonment. Then this silent hatred awakens, this emotional poison born of their frustration. This kind of hatred is rarely obvious. It does not come with shouting or open arguments. It shows itself in passive-aggressive remarks, in unnecessary comparisons, in jokes that sound like humor, but carry poison. If you are not aware of it, you can easily believe that something is wrong with you, that you must change, that you are triggering something bad. But that is false. What you trigger is only a mirror of their inner world, and that mirror hurts. According to Jung, there is a part of our psyche he called the shadow. This shadow contains everything we deny about ourselves, our fears, our insecurities, our anger, but also our strength, greatness, and light. Everything we cannot accept we throw into this hidden part of the soul. And when someone stands before us who embodies what we have repressed, this shadow awakens with merciless force. That is why some people cannot stand your happiness, your authenticity, or your success. Not because you are bragging, but because you represent that side of themselves they had to bury in order to survive. It is crucial that you understand this. It is nothing personal. Even if it feels like it, even if it seems directed right at you, it is not. This person does not hate you for who you are, but for what you represent in their unconscious. You are a mirror reminding them of everything unresolved within themselves. And that hurts. When this pain is not transformed, it turns into resentment. And resentment, when fed for too long, becomes hatred. This hatred is not rational. That is why you are sometimes confused and ask yourself, why does she treat me this way when I have done nothing to her? Jung explained this masterfully. When we are not aware of our inner conflicts, we live them out in the outer world. We create external enemies so that we don't have to look inside ourselves. Thus, you can unconsciously become the symbolic enemy of someone who never dared to face their own life. Your freedom confronts their suppression. Your light highlights their darkness. Your success exposes their unrecognized mediocrity. And when that happens, when you become the projection surface for the hatred of someone who barely knows you, you have two choices: to strike back or to understand. Jung invites us to the second, to understand that the hatred of others is a message, a symptom, an echo of an inner wound that is not yours. And in this understanding lies your power. You no longer need to explain yourself, justify yourself, or dim your light just to avoid unsettling others. You learn to protect your energy without falling into the cycle of resentment yourself. The hatred that disguises itself as envy sneaks in slowly. Sometimes you feel it in small reactions, when someone downplays your achievements, when they don't celebrate with you, or when they change the subject as soon as you talk about your dreams. And sometimes it shows itself openly, in betrayal, sabotage, or criticism meant to emotionally destroy you. But the most dangerous thing about this kind of hatred is that it often comes from those close to you, from those who claim to love you, to support you, to stand by your side, and that makes it so painful. Jung understood that the hardest part of the individuation process, the path of truly becoming yourself, is not the inner struggle, but the loneliness that accompanies it. The more authentic you become, the more you distance yourself from systems of social approval. The more you heal, the more you disturb those who benefited from your wound. Your growth destroys the roles others needed to feel superior or necessary. And then they begin to hate you, not out of conscious malice, but because your very existence shakes their psychological defense mechanisms. That is why many people reject you precisely when you grow, when you heal, when you stop conforming, lying, belittling yourself. The former you was convenient, controllable. The current you, awakened, is threatening to them, and since they cannot express it, they show it through silent hatred, through distance, mockery, or cold indifference. You are not responsible for the projections of others, but you are responsible for how you respond to them. And if there is anything Jung left us as a legacy, it is the realization that what happens outside is always a mirror of what happens within us. Every time someone rejects you for no reason, every time you feel that inexplicable hatred, you can pause and ask yourself, which part of me is being mirrored here? What am I unconsciously triggering in the other? And how can I remain centered without losing myself in reaction? The real danger does not lie in the hatred of others, but in what this hatred can trigger within you if you are not awake enough. For when you are attacked, rejected, or despised without reason, your ego begins to doubt. You may wonder whether you are really doing something wrong, whether you even deserve what you have achieved, or whether you are truly as valuable as you thought. And that is where the poison begins, not from the outside, but from within. It creeps in as doubt, guilt, and the need for recognition. If you are not firmly grounded, if you do not truly know yourself, you risk shrinking to please others, hiding so as not to disturb anyone, betraying yourself to avoid losing love. Jung said that authenticity comes at a price. Being yourself is not a comfortable or easy task, because it means stopping trying to please the world and instead listening to yourself. It means facing rejection, misunderstanding, and yes, even hatred. But this price, as high as it may be, is the gateway to a real life. A life with meaning, a life made not of masks but of essence. It is very revealing how people react to your light. Jung said that not everyone is ready to see what you see or to accept what you have already integrated. That does not make them evil. It makes them human, trapped in their own shadows. The problem arises when you forget who you are, just to save those who do not even want to be saved. When you reduce your power so others do not feel small. When you mute your voice so others do not feel exposed. You are not here to conform, you are here to transform. And this transformation begins with the realization that not everyone will celebrate your growth, not everyone will understand your path, and some will even hate it. Because seeing someone heal, someone free themselves, someone clearly say no, that is unbearable for many. It reminds them that they could do it too, but they don't dare. The closer you get to your truth, the more often you will encounter this hatred, not because you are doing something wrong, but precisely because you are doing something right. Because you are breaking unconscious patterns. Because you are freeing yourself from toxic dynamics. Because you are no longer manipulable, influenceable, or controllable. And that disturbs those who fed on your insecurity, your silence, or your need for validation. Jung explained that many relationships are based on imbalance. One gives too much, the other takes without limits. And when you decide to restore this balance, the relationship begins to crumble, and often this division brings hatred with it. This hatred does not appear only in personal relationships. It can also occur in the family, in the workplace, or in society. It is enough that you start to shine, to show yourself, to express your vision. And critics appear, people who do not question your work but you as a person, people who do not criticize your ideas but your right to have them. And they do it with hostility that seems irrational, but which Jung understood precisely. It is the collective shadow at work, the collective unconscious that resists change. Your transformation threatens the stability of their system. That is why the bravest thing you can do when someone attacks you with hatred in the form of criticism is not defense, but understanding. Understanding that you are touching something in this person, something they have not yet recognized. This understanding is not weakness, but wisdom, because it allows you to act consciously instead of reactively. You are not here to convince others of your worth. You are here to remember your worth and to live from it. That is your true task and your strongest protection. For when you are in harmony with yourself, the hatred of others does not destroy you, it strengthens you. Not because it does not hurt, but because it no longer defines you. Jung spoke of the self as the innermost core of our being, beyond the ego, beyond the social mask. To connect with this self means to be connected with your deepest truth. And when you are anchored there, everything external loses its power over you. Judgment, rejection, misunderstanding, for you no longer need confirmation from the outside. You confirm yourself. And that disturbs, because a person who confirms himself is free. And a free person is dangerous for a system that is based on conformity. So what to do when you are confronted with this hatred? First, don't take it personally. Remember, it is not about you, but about what you reflect. Second, observe where your authenticity provokes the greatest resistance. That gives you clues to the wounds you are touching, not only in others, but also in yourself. And third, and this is the most important, choose. Choose not to bend, not to betray yourself, not to diminish yourself out of fear of rejection, because that is the true act of power. To remain yourself, even if it disturbs others. Do not confuse understanding with submission. To understand where the hatred of others comes from does not mean that you should allow yourself to be hurt. It means that you see the attack without falling into it, that you set boundaries without filling yourself with resentment, that you walk away without needing to take revenge, because you know, the hatred of others does not belong to you. It is the echo of their inner struggles, not the measure of your worth. And here comes the most beautiful part of inner work, as Jung understood it. When you integrate your shadow, when you make peace with your own darkness, the hatred of others no longer finds resonance in you. Because there are no rejected parts in you that could still vibrate with this external rejection. There are no open wounds that can be so easily struck. And that is exactly what makes you free. Free to move on, to create, to live from your deepest truth without fear of being destroyed by the opinions of others. And yet, even if you understand all this, even if you know that the hatred of others has nothing to do with you, it can still hurt, because you are human, because you feel, because you carry wounds, because you have the natural need for connection. And because this hatred sometimes comes precisely from those from whom you expected love, respect, or at least understanding, that is one of the deepest wounds, to realize that someone you loved, supported, or sincerely accompanied now rejects you or attacks you with a harshness you cannot comprehend. But Jung also gave an answer to this. He spoke of the process of individuation as a lonely but necessary path. Not because one must remain alone forever, but because it takes a time in which the voices of others fall silent so that you can finally hear your own. In this silence, in this separation, your inner strength grows. There you recognize which parts of you were real and which were only adjustments to maintain connections that no longer resonate with you. Often people resist your growth not out of malice, but because your development confronts them with the uncomfortable truth that they too could change, but do not. Your transformation shows them their own stuckness, and that is something not everyone can face. That is why what begins as envy turns into discomfort, and finally into hatred, not because of what you are, but because of what you show is possible. When you experience this with awareness, you can view hostile actions from another perspective. You do not make yourself a victim, you do not fight back, but you also do not stay there. Because Jung also taught, there is no growth without separation. Some bonds can exist only as long as you remain small, but when you decide to unfold, these bonds begin to stretch, to crumble, and finally to break. And as painful as it is necessary. Too often we hold on to relationships that have long ended their cycle, out of fear of emptiness, of loneliness, or in the hope that the other will change. But Jung said clearly, the other will only change when he is ready to look within, and that is not in your hands. Your only responsibility is to yourself, your integrity, your inner peace. You are not here to save anyone, you are here to awaken, to grow, and to inspire through your example. And sometimes that means withdrawing, not as punishment, but as an act of self-love. It means letting go of people who have decided to live in their shadow and are not ready to see the light you have embraced. You cannot carry their wounds. You cannot do the inner work they refuse to do. You can love, understand, and let go, because when you consciously let go, you do not lose, you free yourself. And in this liberation, you begin to surround yourself with other people, with those who do not envy you but are inspired by you, who do not hate you but grow at your side, who do not belittle you but celebrate with you. This is no coincidence, but it is the result of your energy. For when you stop tolerating toxic dynamics, you begin to attract healthy connections. Your vibration changes. And as Jung explained, the unconscious also projects itself onto the relationships we allow or reject. The way you respond to hate reflects the state of your inner work. If it still destroys you, consumes you, then it is because parts of you are still seeking validation, still afraid of not being enough. But if you observe it, understand it, and move on without losing your center, then it is a sign that you have integrated your shadow. Because then you no longer have to prove anything, you only have to be. Being yourself, with everything that comes with it, is the most radical act you can accomplish in this world, full of conformity and masks. We live in a time that constantly urges us to please, to adapt, to stay silent. But you choose to be authentic, and that not only changes your life, it also changes the energy you bring into the world. Jung would say, every time you choose to be yourself, you also give others permission to do the same. Even if at first they reject you, hate you, or judge you, history is full of people who were first rejected because they shone, because they thought differently, because they broke boundaries. Many of them were only admired after they had first been despised. For the hate that arises from the collective unconscious is always a reaction to change. But this hate dissolves when it meets a truth that endures, because authenticity has a power that cannot be destroyed. It can be ignored, mocked, ridiculed, but never destroyed. And you carry this power within you, even if you sometimes doubt, even if your surroundings unsettle you. Deep inside, there is a part that knows you are moving towards something real, something non-negotiable. This part is your inner compass needle, the voice Jung taught you to hear, this quiet intuition that does not shout, but never errs. When you learn to follow it, the outer noise loses its power. For in the end, it does not matter how many hate you, but how deeply you live in alignment with your truth. Inner coherence grants you peace, even in the midst of the storm. And this peace, no one can take it from you unless you hand it away yourself. And if there is one thing you must never forget, it is this: your worth does not depend on how comfortable others feel around you. Your worth is innate, untouchable, non-negotiable. You are not here to diminish yourself until you disappear. You are here to shine so strongly that even your shadows learn to dance with your light. For as Jung taught, the most important task of your life is not to please the world, but to become whole, whole with your light and your darkness, whole with your certainties and your doubts, whole even when others try to shatter you with their hate, disguised as concern or well-meant criticism. Often this hate comes in the form of advice. Don't take it so seriously. You talk too much about it. You imagine too much. Words that sound harmless, but carry an invisible weight that belittles you, unsettles you, makes you doubt. But the truth is, these words say nothing about you. They only reveal the other's fear. The fear of seeing you free, while they themselves still remain in chains they do not dare to break. For every time you dare to break out of the mold, you force others to admit that they too could do the same. And that is something not everyone wants to face. So do not expect approval. Do not seek it. Do not need it. If your path is in harmony with your truth, your essence, your soul, everything else will follow. Peace will come. The right energy will come. The right people will come. And all that was never truly with you will fall away by itself. Not because you reject it with hate, but because it no longer resonates with your frequency. As Jung said, when you change, everything changes. Not because the world adapts to you, but because you no longer fit into what was once only a mask. That is true liberation. You no longer need to strive to be liked, accepted, or understood, because you are no longer willing to betray yourself just to maintain broken bonds. And as painful as it is at the beginning, it will, over time, become your greatest act of power. You realize that you are not dependent on the love of everyone. You only need loyalty to yourself. This loyalty becomes your protection, like an invisible armor that does not repel the hatred of others, but prevents it from entering your inner self. For now, you recognize it for what it is, an expression of pain, not of truth, a projection of an unhealed wound, not a judgment of your worth. The deeper you dive into yourself, the more compassionate you become, but also clearer, firmer. You can look at someone who hates you with compassion without humiliating yourself. You can understand their pain without having to carry it. You can even wish them well without letting them back into your life, because you no longer act out of need, but out of awareness. This clarity is not coldness. It is emotional maturity. Jung spoke of individuation as a process of integration, not perfection. It is not about being flawless, but about being conscious, about recognizing your light and your shadow, and also those of others, without losing yourself in them. For when you look from your center, you can see the shadow of another without making it your enemy. You can discern what comes from you and what comes from the other. And that is where true wisdom begins, not reaction. The truth is, you are not here to live on the surface. You are here to awaken, to remember who you are, to reconnect with the part of you that knows, that feels, that remembers. And every time someone tries to stifle this part of you, they do not do it because they know you too well, but because they have lost themselves too much. For someone connected to their own essence would never try to destroy the essence of another. And if you feel that the hatred of others becomes too strong, remember you too have shadows, and the key lies in not becoming what has hurt you. Do not answer hate with hate. Do not play the game of emotional revenge. Do not imitate the contempt of those who still cannot love themselves. For you know better. You have seen more. You have felt more. You can choose differently. You can choose to heal instead of hurt. You can choose to withdraw instead of explode. You can choose to shine instead of hide. That is true freedom, to act from your center, not from your wound. And when you do that, you become a lighthouse, not a lighthouse that shouts, but one that simply shines. And this light transforms. Those who are ready will see it and awaken. Those who are not will hate you. Yet even their hate is part of their path to change. And here lies the most important thing. You are not here to carry the emotional burden of others. You do not have to resolve the shadows of others. You only have to face your own. You only have to live your truth. And that is enough, more than enough. Because when you live from your truth, the world can move as it wants. You remain steadfast. You may feel rejection, but you do not define yourself by it. You may notice hate, but you do not drown in it. Because your identity no longer depends on the outside. That is the true power Jung wanted you to discover. The power of knowing yourself so well and healing so deeply that the outside no longer has the power to destroy you. Your life is no longer based on pleasing others, but on unfolding yourself. You no longer live to avoid conflicts, but to create meaning. You no longer waste energy trying to convince others. You simply embody what you know. And when you do that, you free not only yourself, but also those who are ready to awaken. This is your moment, the moment to stop apologizing for your light, to stop shrinking yourself so as not to disturb anyone, to stop carrying the projections of others, because you are not the hate that others feel. You are the mirror of what they still do not dare to see within themselves. And that should not scare you, but remind you of your strength. Hate does not define your worth. It reveals it. If you trigger strong reactions in others, it means you are touching something real, something deep, something that matters. So do not stop, do not hide, do not be silent, keep going. The path may not always be easy, but it is the only one that leads to freedom, to abundance, and to yourself. And now, since you have come this far, take a deep breath. Maybe something moved within you while hearing these words, a memory, a wound, an experience you could not name until now. Maybe you realized that what you once felt as envy was in truth disguised hatred, and that this hatred never had anything to do with you, but with the inner battles of others. But maybe you also realize that you are not here to keep carrying burdens that are not yours. Because understanding all this is not merely an intellectual act. It is an act of liberation. It means letting go of the need to explain yourself, to justify yourself, or to beg for understanding. It means recognizing yourself as what you are, valuable, free, and authentic, even if that disturbs the world. And that is true power. You do not have to belong where you have already outgrown. You do not have to make yourself small to be accepted, because every time you choose your truth, every time you protect your energy and honor your path, something great happens. You awaken. And in awakening, you realize that life is not about pleasing, but about being. It is not about gaining approval from everyone, but about living in peace with yourself. It is not about preventing others from hating you, but about not allowing that hatred to destroy what you build with so much love. That is why today I want to invite you to something. If these words touched something in you, if you felt that a truth was spoken here that you needed to hear, then do not keep it to yourself. Share this video with someone who also needs to awaken, with someone who was condemned for their light, who was rejected for their authenticity, with someone who, like you, is ready to stop living under the shadows of others and has begun to live from their own light. Write to me below in the comments which part of this message touched you the most. What experience did you have that now, through this reflection, you can see with different eyes? Your story is not only valuable, it is necessary, because every word you share here can be the mirror that someone else needs in order to heal, to understand, to grow. This is how together we create a community where growth is shared, where knowledge becomes experience, and the invisible becomes conscious. And if you have not done it yet, subscribe and activate the bell to receive more messages like this. Because every time you comment, share, or simply are present, you help these contents reach more people. People who, like you, were hurt by the silent hatred of their environment, but are now ready to believe in themselves again. Thank you for being here. Thank you for giving yourself this space of awareness, reflection, and truth. Remember, the hatred of others can never extinguish the strength of a person who knows themselves, honors themselves, and has decided to live authentically. You are not alone. Many of us have chosen this path, even if it sometimes hurts. But many of us have also discovered that this pain is only the threshold to a freer, fuller, more genuine life. See you in the next video. And until then, never forget, you are not what others project onto you. You are the consciousness that decides how you respond. And this consciousness, this inner strength, that is what truly makes you invincible. Thank you for being part of this community. The change begins with you, and you have already begun it.